You ready? I'm looking for a high sign from Laurie. Okay. Ready? All right, you got the nod. So call to order this regular meeting of the Boonton City Council this July 13th. No wonder that my
Oh, okay, I've got to get my.
That's the secret door we didn't know about.
I didn't know it existed. Yeah, gave us all COVID. All right, this Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, 6 p.m. Start with the introduction of a pledge of allegiance, an opening prayer, reading or expression of thoughts. And
Great. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful that we could meet together tonight as a council, and we're thankful to live in this great city of Pleasant View and to have an opportunity to represent the citizens here. And we're thankful for our police force and for also those members of the admin that help make this city run great. And we pray tonight that as we make decisions and as we have discussion, that our minds will be clear and that we'll be able to make decisions that will benefit the city and our citizens. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. There's always a disconnect between the electronic version of it and actually paper. I like paper to go through it while I'm here, so. Because I like to write, but I need to make a quick note here. All righty. Item 1B is declaration of conflicts of interest. Yeah, her chance to review the agenda. And are there any conflicts? Okay. Has Sarah joined us? Is waiting, maybe in a waiting room or? Okay. Okay, and that's fine if she doesn't. I just don't want to leave her in a waiting room if she's trying to. All right, we'll move on to 1C, public comments, questions for the mayor or council. Anybody from the public wish to address? Okay, we'll move to item 2 is the consent item. Minutes of January 10th, 2023, both the open and closed. The closed are in your red confidential folder. Okay. Anything else? See. Okay, second the motion by Gibson, second by Marriott. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 3 is home occupation discussion, possible action to grant an exemption to the home occupation conditions to allow persons who are not bona fide residents of the premises to be employed on the premises. Business located at 3161 North, 875 West as part of the salon business. Laurie.
Okay, she is here
Okay.
in the audience. I did, so this is just a request to, yeah, Brianna, to add another seat to her salon. The person would work 2 to 3 days a week. I've received a complaint today that even with the existing business, there are some parking issues in front of their home and not just the home of the business. Blocking driveways. Sometimes there's been 3 cars. I don't know if there's some solutions to correct that. Maybe signage on the home saying here is where the business is. Apparently some of them park and don't know which home it is and they'll go to her home instead. So there's some traffic issues and some where to go issues on that one. But it is up to you guys whether you want to grant the exceptions or not. And she's here. I don't know if she's come up with any solutions to help that issue.
So question I would have, Brianna, I assume that's who we're talking to. Yes, there should be plenty of parking. It's just you and one other stylist, right?
I think sometimes when she says there's 2 or 3 cars, I never have more than one person there. I only do one person at a time. I don't ever double book. That's not what I do. I have teenagers that live around me and their friends park across the street as well. So they'll park in front of my house. I don't care if they park there. I guess I'll just have to make it be known, like if there's somebody there, then you need to park in my driveway. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times, like there's teenage boys that live across the street and their friends come over
All this. Yeah.
all the time. Like, and so
So
I
just
don't
make an
ever,
assumption that
I've
it's
never
your-
blocked it.
So it's just you right now.
It
and
is
you're
just
asking
me.
for one other
Yeah. Well, and I don't have-
simultaneously.
Yes, it's a friend that I've gone to high school with her and we work well together. She would be like renting a chair from me essentially, but like she wouldn't work full time and stuff like that. To say I blocked anybody's driveways, a little bit of an exaggeration.
What's the time frame of when you work and when she would work? It's idea.
We both work from like 9 to 5. Sometimes like she would work later because of her kids and like they go with their dad, but the latest would be 7 o'clock. So
Doing the same service.
yeah, we
same
both
type
do
of service.
hair. Yeah, both do hair and color and cuts.
Do you have room in the driveway? If there's 2 of you working?
Yeah,
that you can
I have
2 or
plenty
3
of room in
clients
my
there?
driveway. I've just never had people park in my driveway because like my husband would be coming in and out and stuff like that, but I can totally have them park in that 3rd stall. Do you know what I mean? And then she could park in my 4th stall. You know what I mean? So like the most there would ever be in front of the house is 2 people. To say there's 3 is not true. Do you know what I mean?
And our city code says that it shall require no parking on a public street other than that which is available in front of the residence. So you could use.
I can fit 4 cars in front of my house though, but if,
Have to use your.
yeah, I
driveway.
was like, I don't ever have 3 people though. Do you know what I mean? I would never have 3 people there at once. So I'm like, I'm either thinking she thinks they're my people and they're the people across the street, but I don't do 3 people at once. I don't work that way. So I tried to like, I thought about getting a sign and like putting it up, but like Tyson said that I can't do that. So I do an automated system with like a reminder system, and I can send out a text saying like, hey, please park in front of my house or my 3rd or 4th stall in my driveway. And I hope it would remediate. I feel like I'm under the microscope from this particular neighbor, you know, a little bit. So I would try to do as much as I can. I don't want to make her life miserable, but
Even a picture of your house so they know which house, if it's a new client or something like that.
that would be a good idea.
Any further questions for Brianna?
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we approve the home occupation business. What's that? Exemption, yeah. At 3161 North, 875 West.
I'll second.
And motion by Marriott, second by Arrington. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries, thank you. Item 4 is Monte Vista Subdivision Improvements Guarantee. Discussion and possible action to consider approval of an escrow agreement for Monte Vista subdivision located approximately 1650 West, 3125 North, Amy.
My microphone is off. Before you this evening is the improvements guarantee for Monte Vista subdivision. And you'll notice, and we haven't yet received the signed copy of this, so this would be contingent on receipt of that. But we do have the engineer's estimates in here, and we're asking for approval as to form, what our form has been on this. And so obviously would fill in the correct data. If there's any changes or modifications to what this is, it would be required to come back before the council. So this is the standard escrow agreement form. I know that they've been waiting some time, but we haven't yet seen the signed and filled out form, and then the engineer's estimate is attached. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Oh, it would not be, obviously, I would not sign it until we're to that point.
Correct. And they should be bringing in a signed, and if there's more comfort to, staff has no hesitation if the council determines to table this at this time, because, you know, they'd mentioned they were trying to get the financing, squared away, and, Brandon, unless you've heard otherwise, I didn't hear anything in the last 2 days on this, so I don't believe that that's yet been handled. But I will say, and similar to some of our other agreements, you know, it may be nice to consider having the council approve the form for the escrow agreement and some of these forms, and just mainly for ease. If there's no modifications to it, it really is more just the engineer's estimates, and those would still be presented with the plat. So, and the plat for this has already been approved.
We said, I think a couple weeks ago, that in the future, we're not gonna have like confidential information in the notes and in the let. So this, we would be approving it as to form tonight, and it wouldn't need to come back, or what would we be doing tonight?
For this one.
For this specific.
For this specific one. So if there's interest, we could actually put the form itself on, and there's another item, actually, the next item on the agenda that addresses that a little bit more. And so we may bring forward 3 different forms and then have the 3 options available. And then if there's any desired modifications to those 3 forms, having that come forward. So I think it simplifies a lot. But
What we're doing today, we're
it's
approving this.
specific
as
to this
one as-
subdivision.
Won't have to come back, filled in with the guaranteed funds and with all the other stuff.
No, and unless you would like to wait and see all of that contained in there, then we're happy to.
We talked about a checklist, we talked about different things getting into play. And it seems like we're approving it before it's actually done. One thing. But do they know it's to do? Do have dates?
Yeah, so we had some correspondence with them.
I think I have no problem doing it, but this goes against a checklist, and if this is done, then we approve it.
Right, and so the escrow agreements themselves are not hokey necessarily, but it's just something that solidifies it. And so what they've got to do is go and you're right, it is not in order of the checklist, and if it's any level of discomfort, but I mean, all of the other pieces are in place at this point. They just need to go to the bank and get the funds secured, and as soon as the funds are secured, then we can move forward with finalization.
Well, I mean,
Or is that not-
well, yeah, this is why we want to kind of get one that's approved form, because really what we do is we're looking at the agreement and the engineer provide the amount. And then we do not execute the agreement until we receive the funds. I mean, we could, but they couldn't do anything. But what I'm saying is, they could come in tomorrow and our next council meeting might not be for, well, I'm gonna propose it to be, but yeah.
We have numbers here, we know what that.
Yeah, right.
They just have.
That's- Exactly.
That seems like. You know what it is, check that checks off with a point, now we bring that to 2012. Again, I'm not talking, because I don't care. I mean,
Yeah.
Nothing's gonna happen.
No, I know, I see what you're saying, but
Nothing's gonna happen till we receive the money, you know, we're gonna give you that approval. I think that's what we're saying. You know, let's do it with the caveat that this is now not going to be activated until we get the escrow amount. This,
we want to kind of remove that step so that we say, okay, we've approved the agreement for everybody, basically, because we're gonna, and if the agreement changes,
So it's the agreement language is what you're approving, is the ability for the mayor to sign off on this agreement language with the developer.
If that's the case, then we can take that up. To have a caveat, to have it. And to approve this section of that. Because we do this all the time, you know, until you get that, this, red line, whatever it is.
and that's what we want to take it out of that process and move it back kind of more. And so in the future, we're going to bring back one. This is the agreement we're going to use. It will only come back here.
If there's changes.
They want to change it or.
That's clear, but it just seems like there's
Yeah.
so many, back and forth, and we've had that, and I can't, that's what happened, steps that I really don't care about. It's more of a creative thing where
This is one of those steps that can really delay the development for no real good reason other than.
other than the fact that they had a list.
Yeah, well, right.
And they knew that they had that.
But
But
it's,
if the council has to approve it, they're waiting for the next meeting, and if that's a month away or whatever. And we're not individually reviewing these agreements as a council. We don't have any input on the boilerplate language of section 12, right?
well, and if you do have input, that's great, but I think it's from a consistency standpoint, best practice to try to use as similar as agreements as possible with all of the developers. In fairness.
We're kind of in between stages. That's why it's kind of, this is the first one that's kind of like this. Usually it's 100% done, but we're trying to, it's like, well,
Well, and this one's kind of weird because we actually already approved the plat and that, but then they weren't quite ready to escrow for the funds and wanted to wait to even begin improvements. And there was an acquisition of another neighboring development. No, I don't think
not
so.
exactly. But we will be coming back with an agreement for us to approve for that.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more on the next item. on
Okay.
that.
Any further discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion on this.
Here, I'll make a motion that we approve the escrow agreement for Monte Vista subdivision.
Second. Motion by Arrington, second by Nelson. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sarah?
Okay, you didn't hear the discussion probably, so. Motion carries. We'll move on to item 5. Ordinance amendment. An ordinance amendment to provide for the use of varying improvement guarantees in accordance with Utah Code annotated 10-9A-604.52C, which states the municipality shall establish a minimum of 2 acceptable forms of completion assurance. The proposed ordinance language allows for use of an escrow surety bond, a cash bond, or a letter of credit. Ordinance 2023-2. Amy.
Such a nice segue from the last item. So this item before you is to gain compliance with Utah Code. So in 2019, the Utah legislature determined that cities had to use at least 2 options for financial guarantee for the improvements. And so this actually provides for the option of 3. Planning Commission recommended approval with a limitation with the cash bond option. And I guess one of our planning commissioners works for the county and they had some issues with this. And so requiring that be at least $1 million or more. And so the other 2 would be open-ended as 2 options. And then that would be a 3rd option for those that are that higher amount in tier. Everything else is very similarly stated, just had a couple of improvements and clarifications within this. So I don't know if there's any questions or discussion on that ordinance.
The law requires us to have 2 forms, right?
Right, and the current ordinance provided for just 1, the escrow.
So we're doing letters of credit, which you said we kind of liked so far.
Mm-hmm.
Cash bond, but I'm seeing a cash bond for any amount deemed necessary or a letter of credit option with total improvement completion out of 1 million or more. So are we only doing a letter of credit if it's $1 million or more?
Correct.
Cash bond can be for any.
Cash bond for any. No, you're just fine. And then we'd continue to offer the option of escrow agreement. So we have some agreement language for 2 of those. We'll get the agreement language for the 3rd secured. And then to the mayor's point, I think bring those back for the council's consideration as to form. And then if obviously there's any modifications required or desired, bring that back to the council for consideration.
Sure, we have legal review it before it comes to the council.
Yes, absolutely.
What is the $1 million portion of that? I mean, what,
So
that's a minimum?
that's the minimum amount.
For the letter of credit.
Mhm. And the reason being, and it was interesting, so one of our planning commissioners, Sean Wilkinson, works for the county. He said that the county had some hiccups and issues with some that were less than that amount and that surety, and some banks and financial institutions when things went a little bit south with the economy before went out of business, and they actually lost some money because the banks didn't have a high enough threshold.
So if it's less than $1 million, they'd be cash bond or escrow would be their options.
We've been doing escrow. We've already had some that wanted to do, but didn't quite qualify. So they went back to the escrow and as long as there's multiple options, I think that's what the state law wanted, was the ability to give them that leeway.
I think that there was a thought that it might be, but I think that they actually are all pretty comparable with regards to cost and also review. And the thing that's nice with some of the options outside of escrow, and at least with the letter of credit, and obviously we're looking at that higher threshold, which the one that you did recently is beyond that $1 million mark, is that it creates less monitoring from the city side, and we don't have to release the escrow amounts and all of that. And we still have that surety from the bank that is protected. Well, if that's with that financial institution. Right, so. And I'm not certain on the specifics of the details, but it sounds like an institution that's able to do the letter of credit for $1 million plus is more reputable than one that does for less. And I don't know. I don't know the specific details. That was just the suggestion of the commissioner. We added it in, and with that suggestion, the planning commission recommended unanimously.
Well,
for
I think it's
approval.
a great addition, especially if they've experienced problems. We might as well not repeat mistakes that they might have made, so.
Well,
They're
but
pretty-
the other is really not fictitious because I think it restricts those funds. And so they have some type of account with that financial institution that they really can't. They put the money into a separate
Holding it in
account.
escrow.
Yeah, so it's,
Still pay interest. Financial institution, still on deposit.
yeah, I'm not certain on how the details work with that.
I know we're seeing more letters of credit than escrow agreements, like when people have us review stuff, so. The firm. Yeah, it's just credit, so yeah, their bank is saying that amount is being, they're guaranteeing that amount for the individual, so they have a letter of credit for that amount. Mhm. Yeah. I don't know if they're holding total credit eligibility, but I don't think there's funds. So that's a good question. I've never been on the other side
I'm
of
not
that.
certain, but
So you don't know if they reserve funds specifically?
I don't know if they hold funds. They don't put it in escrow. I know that.
Well, I imagine they only get good long-time customers that they I mean, they probably just don't grant anybody a, yeah.
It'd be good to know.
No, I'm just, yeah, but to your point.
It is a good question, yeah. I'm just-
Insurance policy.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, Sarah, do
Now
you
we
have a
can.
comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, now you can. No, when I used to work in construction loans at a bank, and it's they don't hold that amount. They guarantee that amount unless it's in a bond, in a different type of agreement. Letter of credit just guarantees that the bank will offer that and that they qualify. That's all it does.
Second motion.
Can't hear a word Steve's saying, but that's okay.
What?
I couldn't hear anything Steve is saying.
Okay, we had a motion by Gibson, second by Mary.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. There you go.
Brandon turned off my microphone.
Brandon.
Record reflects.
Any further discussion?
Mhm.
Roll call, Arrington,
Yes.
Gibson. Marriott,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Yuri.
Yes.
Carries, thank you. All right, item 6A, general plan amendment, discussion and possible action to consider a general plan amendment to the moderate income housing plan in compliance with Utah Code annotated 10-9A-4032B3, including specific measures and timelines for implementation strategies. Ordinance 2023-3.
So, Mayor, I don't know how we missed this, and I am so sorry, Brianna. I think we forgot to vote on her item.
No, we
We
voted.
did, we voted.
We voted
Oh.
because that's when Sarah said she couldn't.
Oh, that's right.
You're
Do we
welcome
vote
to
if-
stay, but you're
Let's
welcome
vote
to
if
go.
Bree has to stay.
Yes.
Well, I was just.
You can leave.
No, you're welcome to stay, please stay. I was. My brain just checked out for a moment. I'm so sorry.
You're good, we voted.
Typically, if you stay though, there's cookies or something that's typically,
Oh, what are the,
no,
oh, no.
the audience are supposed to provide that.
Amy, do you want to discuss these both and then we'll vote separately, or do you want to take them one at a time?
I'm actually gonna take them one at a time because they really are two separate actions.
Introduce them.
No problem. Okay, let me. Well, we appreciate Brianna staying. That's kind of fun. Apparently lost my focus for a moment. Okay, so. Which here. So before you this evening, are a couple of general plan amendments, and the first one,
You can't say that. You're gonna take them one at a time.
I'm taking them one at a time. The first one that we're discussing is an amendment to, here we go. The moderate income housing plans of the city. And so last year in the legislative session, the state legislature approved some measures specific to providing for cities to implement affordable housing criteria. And in reviewing the city's compliance, in addition to all of the other cities in the state, 75% of the cities in the state were deemed incompliant with this. And the reasoning being was that there wasn't enough specification, there weren't measurable items included, and there wasn't enough reference to the state code. So with that, worked out some different things that I'll go through. Just one thing to note with this, and not saying, we have to go one way or the other, but if you choose to go a different direction, we may want to table and make adjustments and have them re-reviewed by the state. So these changes have been sent to the state for review of compliance, and they said if approved as is, would be deemed compliant. So that's very good news. But again, that isn't to preclude you from making any adjustments or changes. I just recommend tabling for noticing purposes. If you do have any changes so that we can get it re-reviewed and ensure compliance, this is a very quick turnaround. We received notice in November of desired changes from the state. And with noticing a general plan amendment, it takes quite a bit of time to notice that at the planning commission level and then to get it to the city council as well.
But if we wanted to change it or modify it in the future, we can make modifications, renotice.
Oh, absolutely.
Resubmit
Absolutely.
it to them. Yeah, I imagine it's got to be revisited fairly regularly.
And they are anticipating this year additional provisions and requirements on this as well. So there's more to come definitely on this, and we'll have, I'm anticipating more general plan amendments related to this coming year. So this is not the end of the discussion by any means, more at the beginning. So included in this language here, and I'll go through the modifications and the changes. Make this a little larger on the screen. One of the things in the general plan language that I thought good to emphasize, sorry, on your screen, there we go, is that Pleasant View City is currently utilizing more than half of its land for residential uses. And not only just residential uses, and it's not just single family homes, but it's a variety of residential uses. And I think that that's a really important distinction to make to the state, that we have housing diversity in our community, and listing out some of that diversity to really help, I guess, show the characteristics of our community, and that we really are truly working to do our part to help with housing affordability. But
Who measured that for us? Do we just go and add up all the lots and all the land and then?
so
divide
there's
that out?
actually a figure on the Census Bureau. So they look at that and population based on land usage as well. So with that, one of the other things I thought important to mention, and this is something that's come up as an underlying theme, is although we really value housing and obviously have the majority of our land dedicated to housing, we also desire to maintain our rural characteristics, and in doing so, look at expanding our housing offering. One of the things that I am proposing to eliminate is this language, to primarily remain more rural, low density residential community, because I really don't feel that that's an accurate depiction or definition of what we are. And so I don't feel that that language was needed. So then this is where we begin to cite the Utah code, and they want it explicitly cited in these. You'll notice a lot of code language. I wasn't messing around. We were not going to miss that mark. So then they also want implementation of a 5-year plan to address goals and strategies to enhance the city offering. So you'll notice some changes here. A couple of the changes too in the plan, and I think it's important to note, one of the prior things that was included as a strategy has since been eliminated, and that is an employee down payment assistance program. It really wasn't something that took off, and I guess my thought process with that is we really should be providing our employees with livable wages, not relying on an employee down payment assistance program to provide for their housing needs. So that was somewhat of the thought process with that. I don't know if there's any concerns or questions there. So then with that, it speaks again to that 5-year plan, and they want strategies, measures and benchmarks and timelines. So you'll notice each of these has exactly what they asked for in the state code, just to, again, ensure compliance. So the first one, and this is something you all are very familiar with, I did try to grab from a lot of our low-hanging fruit, was mixed use west zoning designation and application. So we actually created a mixed use west zone, and wanted to get some credit for that. And then the measure or benchmark would be an actual application to have the zoning designated in the city. So the property that we were looking at having that designated within has not yet brought forward an application, but they have expressed interest in that. And so in the next 5 years, working with them to to see if we can get that application forthcoming. Obviously, we honor individual property rights, so we can't force that upon them, but it's something that we can work toward. And looking at getting that possibly in the next fiscal year. So this speaks to that. The second one is one of the provisions in the state code, again cited within the code, is a demonstration of investment in the rehabilitation or expansion of infrastructure that facilitates the construction of moderate income housing. And so this one I thought was very appropriate. The Wasatch View Estates Trailer Park Community determined its desire to rehabilitate itself. And it's something that the city has worked with them on building permits and preparation of pads and that. And then also we have our roadway project going in right next to that, the partnership project with Far West. And so again, getting credit for some of the things that we're already doing that help to continue low-income housing in our, not low income, but moderate affordable housing in our community. And then the third item is actually something that's, I was speaking with our planner earlier today, and for those of you that were able to attend the LEAD conference, is something that's coming up quite a bit is accessory dwelling units. In our ordinance, they're actually addressed as attached accessory apartments. But I made sure to include both the language in state code and our language, tried to make sure to emphasize that they are synonymous in our code with that to show that we are working to comply with that. But also there's a lot of interest around this, and my anticipation is if there's any legislation that is approved on this, we may have some additional ordinance modifications to come. So it's kind of a good time to look at this, but then also there may be some changes to state code that will require us to look at it anyway.
That's what I'm hearing too. So the detached accessory dwelling units, a lot of cities are already, Salt Lake, you can do a 750 square foot detached, it's good use. And I think the legislature is going to make that happen across the board, but there was more push for it a year ago than there is now. When home prices were going crazy, there was a big push for it. So I don't know if this session, if it'll be as good.
Yeah, I know. And I think it's worth looking at. One of the discussions the mayor and I have had a lot is, looking at the middle housing, the missing middle. We've got a lot of low income, we've got a lot of high income, but where's that gap and how do we help fill that in our community? And I know our planners talked a lot about ownership, and so looking at ownership opportunities and how to encourage those. And so I feel that these strategies are really workable within the confines of our community and also address the requirements of the code. So I don't know if there's any questions or concerns about those. That's three strategies, and I can go into any more depth that is helpful.
Well written. I don't want to have the debate right now about it, but if we had any issues with the internal apartments, accessory dwelling units, has that been problematic?
Well, one thing that's been interesting in the last year, I think last year at the legislature, they actually removed the ability for HOAs to restrict those. And so we did have a conditional use permit over the last year come forward, and the HOA was up in arms, and we told them state law does not allow you to preclude these. I mean, and they wanted the city to stop it, and we couldn't stop it. And we did, and you probably all may recall, change our ordinances to change that from a conditional to an allowed use, because it just, there really wasn't much we could restrict on it.
What's the difference between an attached and an internal? Is it basically just
Oh, they're the
renting
same.
space?
So just as long as it's attached to the house or internal to the house, then it's permitted.
Either one.
But detached, right? So if I have a garage with an apartment. Right now, we would require a condition.
But I do think that, I can't remember where I heard this, but I heard in the last couple of weeks, I think it might have been a meeting last week, that there's a movement to consider accessory dwelling units that are above garages as an internal.
Really?
Talked about that at the.
Yeah,
Salt.
they
Yeah.
did mention that too.
Right.
Oh,
So Amy and I had this knockdown drag out for a little while in the office. Really, what is affordable housing, and how and how do we say
Steve,
that?
I'm with you. It's so
Because-
subjective.
Because that drives me nuts, because, you know, if we allow a low density apartment complex to come in, you know, or the patio homes, for example, down there, that's a lower density, but those patio homes cost more than my house. So is that affordable? You know, and really, what is affordable, and how can we, unless we do like California or some of these other places that are trying to, you know, do have rent control and all this nonsense, subsidized housing or things like that, I don't know how we can set that aside and have it be affordable housing. Because
You
personally,
can't unless we buy it.
and some of this language, you know, I do not want apartments in our facility. Now, we have, you know, our multi-west, whatever, that's gonna allow some of that stuff. And without being labeled you know, elitist or something like that, I moved to Pleasant View, as well as the other 10,000 other residents, or 12, however we are now, for a lifestyle, which you talked about a little bit. And to mandate some of that, I don't feel comfortable in how we can still allow, you know, my kids, they could never afford to live in Pleasant. And how do we do that? I mean, what does affordable housing really mean from the state's standpoint? And I've never heard that. What that
Currently,
means.
$78,000. If you make $78,000, you can afford a house that's affordable.
So, you know, we've got a
Trade
tremendous,
major.
you know, the station, tremendous amount of apartments down there. But I think the chief would say it's 50% of our calls. Go to that, you know, trailer parks, again, that's a lower income. But the majority of our calls go to those types of things, which I don't want to put, you know, a label on anybody that lives there. I'm not trying to do that, but how in the world can we do this? I mean, I know you've done a lot of work on this, but I don't want to open up something that then gets us
Well,
where we don't want to be as far as our vision. And maybe, you know, I'll be here for 2 more years, and maybe the next councilman or somebody a woman will come in and completely have that change to where we do allow and have places like, I mean, you look at all these multi-story apartment complexes that are going in every vacant lot. And that only benefits the developer.
let me take a
That-
stab at trying to tell you what we've done. Because I agree 100%. It's a moving target. Makes no sense. I feel like Pleasant View has a large amount. And if you look at the study, and this is what bugged me, is they said, well, Pleasant View's not carrying its weight because you have less than 1% of the affordable housing in Weber County. And I said, I don't care about Weber County. What's our percentage for Pleasant View? That's what I care. I think we have plenty of affordable housing for Pleasant View. So when the state mandated that we come up with a plan, I sat down with Amy and said, look, I believe instead of saying we're going to do this and this and this for affordable housing, we're going to say we've done this, and we want to, and this we'll talk more about this on the 11th, one of the work session items. We want to do more in the middle.
I've got one comment to follow up on that.
Instead of concentrating everything on quote afford, because there is no definition for it. So I can't even tell you what affordable is. I can tell you what medium density is in Pleasant View, but I can't tell you.
Well, I have an example. This is the last thing that I'll say, and then I'll shut up. But Chief,
Take your time.
but there's a resident in our place that she bought a house next to her, and it's they have a house that's rented, but they fixed up the basement to also rent. You know, it'd be like it's right next door to their house, and our ordinance says you can't do that. It has to be an owner occupied to be able to rent in a house. And I think, why? I mean, in my neighborhood, I don't care. You know, that to me would be an affordable house that brings them income. You know, I know that can be problematic when you have somebody in California renting and you don't have any oversight. But they're right next door. They're not going to allow anybody to be, you know, questionable. So stuff like that, I think we can look at a little bit. We have a lot of people that are renting that shouldn't be. You're renting out basements that are not approved just because I don't think our ordinances are clear in that. You know, mobile apartments are over a garage or whatever it is. So I would like to look at some of those types of things instead of opening up something down the road that that we don't want. Because that's the middle of it. And I appreciate you saying that, Mayor. That really is something that I think can have an effect on the ability to people to come in.
So a couple of distinguishing factors. This is general plan language. This is non-binding. And I tussled a little bit back and forth with the state because I said, you cannot force and bind our council for future councils. And I mean, this is not an ordinance. This is the general plan. And so you'll notice this language does not commit or promise anything. And it really can't. Because
So it appeases the state. So why are we even doing it?
That's why.
if we
Because it's
cannot
required.
get compliance and have this cured, then we cannot get any state funds.
Yeah, with funding.
They're talking about withholding our road funds if we don't comply.
We're not compliant.
Because so we need to get with our legislators and say, listen, this,
They're all hot. They think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
because it doesn't, well, okay.
Oh, Steve, you would have died last week at the day of the legislature. Holy cow.
All right. Any further discussion? If not, I'm gonna entertain a motion on ordinance 2023-3.
I think Steve should do it. It's just kidding.
You know, I mean, I know the hard work you've done, but I almost don't want to vote on it. I don't want to say yes because it,
Well, I don't think it
It won't
commits us
hurt
to
my-
anything like, I mean, the first two is kind of what we've done, the strategies we've already done. And the third one is
To look at ADUs, and
Yeah,
it's basically the
ADUs.
point you just
to
brought
kind
up.
of
Point.
redo our ordinance, look at some of these things.
and
you
so,
just
so,
raised.
I mean, if it passes muster, you know, and it checks off of the check mark, then I guess I'm. But
And
I
it
just-
stays pretty benign, right?
But I just don't want to head down someplace where I personally don't want to be. Again, we have 4 other people.
But it's a snapshot in time, right? We're saying we're compliant at this point, but it doesn't bind us to anything.
Oh, but we're gonna need to next year or the year after go and say, yes, we have revisited things you just said about accessory unit.
Yeah, our reporting is gonna go up for this
We've
next year,
done
but
that,
I
and
think
we
we're
said
gonna
we
have
were
to
gonna.
look at the ADUs anyway with the
And
way
we
the
need
state
to
has
do that.
is heading, right?
Yeah.
Identified we need to do because they're cropping up all over. And we're not catching them, we're not monitoring them, we have no idea. So we need to get a handle on it.
At our working
We said
session,
we'd do that.
we should talk about ADUs because what's gonna happen is they're gonna pass that state law and then we're gonna be in scramble to come up with an ordinance that complies. And so we should be in front of that. Of what do we want? And what do we want them to look like? Square footage limitations, percentage of the lot, what do we?
That's one of the things.
But I
on
want to
that.
know, I want the state to tell me what affordable is. Because that is so, I mean, it's just
I
something.
just
I want somebody to tell me why cities are responsible to solve this problem. That's what I hope.
Because we can't, unless we have a subsidized something. That, because we can't tell a builder, I want you to build, $500 apartment, $500 apartment a month. I mean, we can't tell them that. I don't think we have a right to tell them that.
So right now, I think what the state, to summarize what I understand the state is doing, I'm not saying that I agree with it or don't, but they're essentially saying, show us that you're making an effort. Here's an acceptable range of menu options they've determined that they feel comfortable with. Pick from this smorgasbord of options and show us that you're gonna make a sincere effort to meet the ones that you chose. So as
Or
far
we're
as,
gonna penalize people not
Yeah.
trying.
and
I agree, I agree 100%. I can't tell you how many times I've raised that issue of what is affordable housing? I can build the same building here and the same building in Ogden, and it's gonna rent for, 30-40% more here. The exact same building is still gonna pay more. Does that make it affordable in Pleasant View? Not necessarily. This means it's located in Pleasant View. So I gotta build a lesser building and I build down there to make it affordable. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to affordable. So a lot of discussions we've been talking about is that instead of using affordable or low income, but I asked the definition at our last housing meeting and I was told $78,000 is the threshold. Anybody making you know,
In Weber County.
In
This is
Weber
our
County.
County housing.
Per county.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I haven't, was it, yeah. That seems pretty arbitrary because every community in Weber County, completely, like you just said, completely different. Completely, the demographics of every city in this county are night and day. Night and day. So I don't know what that is.
So
much
is
to
that
me.
like 35% of their income can be toward housing? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
The
it's
third.
70% of AMI, which is area median income. Like people, if they meet that threshold, are not dedicating more than, I don't know the exact percentage, but 35% or so of their income to their housing costs. And then so that's the affordable housing. And then there's also a separate issue of, it sounds similar term, but housing affordability, which is just general price of housing for every.
You're gonna sell a 70 whatever thousand person, well, you have to put that much towards your house, but all those new cars, the new boats, the new four-wheelers, all that, you can't have.
I don't know.
Wasting your money.
We just changed,
It just makes
if
no
we
sense.
changed our bigamy laws and everybody could just marry more people, then we could have everybody make 78,000.
That was Phil Nelson.
Mute his mic.
You're trying to increase the household income, that's.
Sure. All right, bring it back to ordinance 2023-3.
All right, Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2023-3 that is a general plan amendment for moderate income housing plans.
Hey, motion by Arrington, second by Marriott. You can vote.
Aye or no?
This is a roll call vote. Arrington,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Marriott,
Yes.
Nelson, Yuri.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Oh, I tried to make comments several times and I guess.
Oh,
oh
no, we
well.
did not hear that.
Oh, well. Anyway,
Item 6B. Discussion and possible action to consider modifying the language describing residential land uses to remove an exception within the rural residential one dwelling unit for every 5 acres. Description which describes the portion of the city which lies east of 500 west and to the eastern city limits, and removing the description of very low density residential 1 to 2 dwelling units for every acre, which describes approximately 500 west to the eastern city limits, extending northward from 4,300 to 4,575 north, ordinance 2023-4. Amy?
thank you. And there's a specific reason why I want these separated, and I don't want these getting muddied together in the state thinking, oh, here they are, acting in one thing and helping housing affordability and acting out the other side, because this truly is intended to be a reflection of our general plan language. And as you all recall, not too long ago, we had an issue before the council where there were some inconsistencies with the general plan. Again, the general plan is a non-binding document. The map and the language had different uses of the densities. And this is up in our foothills area off of 4,300. And so the proposed language before you eliminates the exception included in that language. And there's 2 different references of that. To have the map and the language match one another. So I don't know if there's any questions, comments, discussion on this. It's a pretty clean edit, but nonetheless, it is an edit.
That was included in a motion to bring this back to you when we had that meeting. So here it is. It's back to you to clean that up.
So really, the change is to remove the exception from 500 west toward the east.
Correct.
it doesn't affect existing homes already because they're already grandfathered in, so it's fine.
Yeah, just makes it match our map. which is what
Yes.
we- All the capital facility plans off of, so.
Yes.
And make it so there's not that inconsistency that.
But was that, do we think that was done just for the subdivisions that were done up there at that point? I mean, when they were approved, I don't know what the subdivisions were called, above 43.
I'm not sure. Historically, we had a hard time finding some of the reasoning stated for the change when it occurred. So I'm not
Dave,
certain.
we can show you city council minutes and stuff and you can make a determination, but a little
Yeah, I
bit
just-
more that way, yes.
When it happened, but I know that was part of the discussion back then, so.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't. It does need to be cleaned up. It doesn't solve the problem we have with our agricultural.
Oh,
So
you're right.
that, we're gonna have to figure that out at some point.
Separate issue, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, this is just the.
That one's on the list.
is
We
just
just
to
gotta
make
get
the
it
text-
noticed and.
Make the text of the general plan match the map of the general plan is basically what it says. So there's not that ambiguity. Okay. Do I have a motion?
Do you need? I'll make the motion. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
But-
Ordinance 2023-4. So
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend, to modify the language describing residential land uses to remove an exception within the rural residential dwelling unit for every 5 acres. Do I need to read the whole thing? I don't think so.
No,
Anyway, as described
presented
in section
ordinance
B,
2020.
ordinance 2023-4. Us, yeah.
I have a second.
I'll second the motion.
By Yuri, second by Marriott. Further discussion? Roll call vote. Arrington,
Yes.
Gibson, Marriott, Nelson,
Yes.
and Yuri.
Yes.
Okay, item 7 is a public hearing on the budget. Discussion of possible action to consider amending the 2022 to 2023 fiscal year budget resolution 2023-B. Amy.
And there is an amended resolution before you on this as well.
Eric, can I make a motion to go into public hearing?
I'll second the motion.
Gibson, second by Marriott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Lay it on us.
Okay, so there is an amended resolution before you, and then I know I should have, caught the order on the agenda with it, Laurie, because the interlocal agreement and discussion follows this, and we have that item included in the budget.
Would you like to maybe put this one on hold and come back to it, or what's your?
I think from an order standpoint, that's probably the best. Just because there are budget implications with that.
Do we stay in a public hearing to do that, or do we?
Well, we'll go back into one. Let's just go ahead and.
Close public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you want to cancel that?
So let's skip that. We'll come back to item 7. Let's move on to item 8, Senior Citizen Center interlocal agreement. Discussion and possible action to consider an interlocal agreement with North Ogden City to support the Northview Senior Center.
Okay, I'll jump right in. So before you this evening is a proposed interlocal agreement with North Ogden City. This came at their request. As of recent, they've wanted to gather some of the funds they feel other communities should be contributing to assist in the functions for the senior center. And they've requested that the city at this time provide a total amount of $12,000. And in the past, the city has provided a $5,000 donation, but the difference being that was to the Northview Seniors, the nonprofit organization, not to the city of North Ogden. Yep, for programming. Thank you, Mayor. And so this agreement before you this evening is something that we've had some discussion with North Ogden on. I know there were still some outline questions just about what other cities are contributing, which we don't have full clarification on. And then also just how that will impact programs. And so I don't know if there's any questions or discussion. I think there will be some discussion.
Mayor, are you gonna share?
Let me start with Steve and then we'll turn it over to you, Sarah.
My understanding, this was for some infrastructure of the building, is that,
This is for ongoing operation.
Maintenance and operations.
and the programs like you just talked about? Because I think the 5,000 went to programs, not to the building.
Correct. And it went
it's
to
North-
nonprofit.
North Ogden then going to, are we then leaving the program $5,000 short, or is North Ogden going to step up and move some of that to a programming?
Well, interestingly enough, we are the only community that contributes to the programming. North Ogden doesn't contribute. Their contribution has been the operation and maintenance of the building. So they do all the other stuff on fundraisers and things like that. So no other city, and just so you know, this is 20% of the O&M. They figure we have 100, I don't remember the exact number, 122 or something like that, residents that use it during the year. Not all at once, obviously. Interestingly enough, Ogden City has 144 that come out here, even though they have their own senior center. So.
And Harrisville has more too.
I used to work selling to the Salt Lake, and they have a pretty good program for the seniors. A lot of, I bet they have 12 different sites, and those are all supported by Salt Lake County. So is Weber County giving anything to the senior program with this independent? You know, Ogden has theirs by the library. This is here, you know, is there a county program that gives money or support the senior program? That's the question.
Weber County does give money. They pay for the meals and they pay half of the salary of the director.
Do they help with the programming aspect as well? Because I don't want to.
No,
No,
the program itself has been historically ran by what we've contributed plus fundraising and other things they do. Is that correct, Sarah? Am I stating that correctly?
oh, 100%. Just a little background here that I have, you know, being on the senior board or whatever, the 5,000 goes strictly to their programs. No other city, like the mayor mentioned, contributes anything at all. They do accept donations for patrons who come in a jug or a box. You know, sometimes it's not a consistent amount of money. They, you know, like if you're going to come play pool or whatever else, please consider giving a couple bucks. Or if you're going to come get a free meal on Thursday when Weber County provides those meals, you know, a suggested donation is $3, but not everybody pays. But North Ogden, here's where I have a little bit of angst giving them more money, is because if we're giving them more money and part of that's going to the O&M of the building, the original charter to build that building and the agreement with North Ogden City is it's for the seniors, not for the Kiwanis Club, not for North Ogden City Council, not for somebody's reception, not for the North Ogden Community Band. And so then Pleasant View ends up subsidizing a community center instead of a senior center. So, and forgive me, I don't know if you guys have a paper in front of you of where, I guess, Mary, you mentioned that the 12,000 is John's figure with operating and maintenance costs. Is that where he came up with that?
For the senior center portion of it. We
Okay.
put in the agreement that we would not pay for, you know, the things she just mentioned, but this is strictly
Yeah.
for the senior centers portion.
But they're
They
not
do-
asking other
do rent
cities
it out to
yet.
other- Pardon?
Have they reached any agreements with any of the other cities that are using it just as much or more?
Not to our knowledge.
Not to our knowledge.
So
No.
they're just picking, as Amy called it, low hanging fruit, next door neighbors. Hey, we're tired of having to deal with this building. You guys need to pay us more money.
There was an indication they were going to reach out to Harrisville, but I haven't heard anything on a resolution with that. And that's the only thing I've heard with that.
Well, the heartburn I have on it is just if we give them $12,000, then they can spend it however they want. I mean, I know our citizens use it, our residents use it. But what if we gave $5,000 still like we did? And then
Mhm.
like 7 to North Ogden, you know? Something like that, where it was like, this is dedicated to the seniors, you know?
I agree with that, because I think, I mean, this 5,000 is very cheap to take care of the seniors. You know,
Those 12 really.
well, I mean, it's 17 or whatever, 50, yeah, 17.
Well, I
I'll deny
indicated
that.
to them that we probably would not do 12 and 5. I did
wouldn't
say,
think-
I just hate that we're getting, I don't know what, and Sarah would have a better idea of what the programming goes for. But we want to have, basket weaving or
they have a big
What-
ceramics program.
Or
It's like
ceramics
almost
or
7,000.
That's where
whatever.
most of their money goes to. Yes, ceramics.
whatever
the
that is, I
teacher.
just don't want to pop that to, because I want to support the seniors that you utilize it. I'm hoping that they are, hoping that they do.
Oh, they are. They
How many
100% are. They offer a lot.
Yeah, I think it was 122 if I remember.
But being about $100 a year.
Yeah, and then Ogden City, there's 155 that go, and Harrisville's like next in line. Far West uses the center a lot too. They kind of have a log where people sign in where they're from and stuff. And there's other communities who definitely use it more or just as much as we do, but yet, and that
So-
started during when Toby was mayor. He started the 5,000 to help with the services that they provide.
And I
And
don't, I'm committed, I like Ann's comment, I would agree with that. We still have the 5,000 for programming and then a lesser point towards maintenance of the building. And to see where that goes, because I just handing them a chunk, and now is this ongoing
Well, yeah,
this year? or
no,
this
it's
next
every year. It'd be
And,
every
and
year.
the way the agreement is outlined, I'm gonna have to look, I think it's.
It says annual. I
So
thought.
how this came
Annual
about, it's
contribution.
interlocal agreement. While she's looking that up. Originally, we received an invoice from North Ogden. Yeah, okay, we met in one of our quarterly meetings with the mayor and then they talked about this and their council was like, why is it, if this is the Northview Senior Center, why is it Pleasant View, da, 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 da. And I said, I agree we should pay our fair share. I have no problem. But I said, what is our fair share? How do you quantify that? And then they just sent an invoice and I pushed back and said, no, we can't just pay an invoice. We've got to have an agreement in place. We got to know what our money's
What was
for.
the invoice?
For 12,000.
But what was on the invoice? Paint, is it?
I never
Or-
actually saw it. I just told them, Larry or one of them told me it came and I'm like, no.
I think it just stated the senior center and where to pay it. It wasn't very,
I
Is
said,
that invoice just for a flat out?
well, then we met again and I said, okay, how did you come up with this? Well, they figured we had 20%, da, 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 da. I said, well, first off, we're only paying for the senior center, part of it. Second is, are you just trying to get Pleasant View to share in your misery or are you trying to be fair to all the, if North Ogden is needing or wanting to share the pain or whatever they want to call it, are you going to Harrisville? Are you going? And they said, well, yeah, but we don't think we can go to Ogden because we got people that go to the Ogden Senior Center, that, and that's like, whatever. Okay, but you are making some kind of good faith effort to reach out to other communities. We have no control. I don't know if Harrisville will look at it and go, we're not playing, or I have no, or same with Far West. I don't know. My biggest concern was the $5,000 to the senior program. I went and met with the senior board with Sarah last week. Their big concern is they feel like North Ogden's taking away from their program by taking Pleasant View's contribution and saying, we're gonna use it to pay the lights or whatever, instead of to run your program.
well,
That's
they're
a-
not wrong. North Ogden
No, they're
hasn't
not
been
wrong.
very kind to them lately at
I
all.
said, I'll bring that back to the council. Give you the history and kind of where this all came from and they're concerned. We're represented on the foundation board. It's a 501(c) by Sarah, Dave Erickson. That's the only two Pleasant View.
No, Christy Bailey. Christy Bailey
Oh,
gets
yeah,
seat.
Chris, yeah, how'd I figure?
And actually, there's two other, they tried to
Okay.
split it halvesies between North Ogden and Pleasant View. But yeah,
What this
Anyway.
agreement- What this agreement gives our seniors is the ability to get the same pricing that North Ogden residents get on anything. Like that's what the terms say, that they'll be charged the same as the North Ogden City agrees to provide services to Pleasant View senior residents at the same rate charge as those services are provided to North Ogden senior residents. So that's what we're.
Except they don't charge. Nobody's charging anything.
Well, they don't charge now, but they could charge. I mean, I guess it gives us an,
We're paying so that they don't do a resident versus non-resident fee structure.
Trying to figure out how to recoup some of their costs. That was one of their proposals.
so the agreement is a 5-year length agreement.
Yeah, 2028, it's an annual agreement.
That's kind of long. I would rather it be shortened from 5 years.
Well, it's got advantages and disadvantages to shorten it. If the disadvantage is if their costs go up and they identify that, hey, we want you to pay more. Of course, we could always just not approve more.
We can terminate it.
Here's my question. What will they do if we don't pay? They're not going to shut down the
that's-
senior center. They
okay.
can't. And
Well,
they're
they
not going
might.
to kick out the seniors.
They might charge Pleasant View residents. So that's the point I'm getting at. Do our seniors, is there enough concern amongst the seniors that they might get charged a $3 fee or whatever to use it that justifies the city paying a $12,000 annual bill? Maybe there is, I mean, I don't know.
And it goes back to
Got it.
what I told them. We don't mind paying our fair share because our residents are using the building. You know, I get that. I understand they're going, well, why did we have this agreement and we've never included Pleasant View? I don't know. My answer to.
No, I
I
get
don't
that.
know.
I just
Why didn't you?
I
Well, it
just
wasn't an
wonder-
issue back then.
I just wonder if, and I don't care either way. I'm not
Yeah.
part of this demographic, but I just wonder if we say to them, work out a fee structure and charge our seniors that use it, because what we're doing is using everyone's money to
Yeah.
pay for a select few that take advantage of the service. So if I go to the pool and use it with my kids, the city doesn't subsidize my use of that pool. Even though it might be free for North Ogden residents, I wouldn't be upset if I had to pay a fee as a Pleasant View resident to use a North Ogden.
But if it was labeled North Ogden City Pool or Northview Pool, that's a difference. And so this is Northview Senior Center, which in my understanding is a shared, which goes back to your thing,
It is.
because it's not just a North Ogden Senior Center that the Pleasant View residents are coming to, it's their senior center as well. And I don't know if that
Yes.
includes Harrisville and Far West, if they're just.
Well, they won't turn anybody away is what I was saying. They've had people.
There's no designation of whose it is. North Ogden made the agreement with when they got the federal funding to build the center. And which is an interesting one too, because in the original charter with that agreement, it is for the seniors. But they have been, moving the seniors from different nights or times to accommodate community events, which there's really where my angst is are we, is it for the seniors? And the mayor's touched on this. The agreement would have to be very specific on, it goes only towards the seniors and the cost, that is associated with that period, not for any of your other community events.
I rented it to do a fundraiser for a sick kid a few years ago and they charged me.
Well, that's it. We're not gonna do it for Phil. No way.
No, but that's what I'm saying. They charged me $400 to rent it, even though it's a fundraiser for this kid. And they charged me for staffing, they charged me, so there's not,
It didn't
those
say
costs are
fire
being
department.
passed on to people that are using it, right? I mean, in theory.
The seniors are really
Well-
only one night a week.
Yeah, and I've
Really?
been told this represents only that. I don't know how we verify. We just take their word for it. That's, I don't think they're trying to pull a fast one on us.
Mayor, I would make a motion that we pay $5,000 to the program. But I don't know how we justify $12,000 without something. Is that
Right.
lights for 1 day a week? Is that heat for 4 days a month?
I'd rather table it to get a more specified.
Have to give us
Breakdown.
I think, even if it was 17,000, that's really cheap for us to take over that program for our residents.
Oh, yeah, we could.
So we couldn't do it.
It's not, it's 12,000 total, 5,000 to the program and 7,000 to the.
But if North Ogden can say, really, the seniors part of that, then you would need new roof, we need paint, new carpet, whatever it is, or.
No, it should be just lights and gas and,
Yeah.
capital improvements should
Utilities.
not come out of this money.
Well,
No.
It's their building.
again, I don't know what is that 12,000 for an invoice for $12,000 and that.
You want to see details,
I want to know
Yes.
exactly what we're getting from.
the money. And
Okay, that's fair enough.
100% that we need to pay our fair share and not just let North Ogden cover it all. I'd love to have them do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to take it all away and give it all to North Ogden and take that 5,000. I think that's not fair to the seniors. So if we table it, if we can do that part of it or something,
Well, the 5,000's already approved for in the budget.
but you're saying that we would take that only add 12,000 for North Ogden and not give the 5,000.
Well,
That's what North Ogden is proposing. So it's completely your determination. And I guess the other question I'd ask is, if you want to continue to give the 5,000, would you be interested in an interlocal agreement with the other?
If they
group?
can, it might,
well,
if they can
that's a
prove what it is,
foundation 501(c). So,
if North Ogden can prove it, and has some facts out there. And
fair enough.
numbers, and if it comes up with that, then I don't care necessarily. I mean, I like what Phil said, we're 122 people. Divide that out among, for, once a month, once a week.
A year, so $100.
Oh, they meet?
Average once a week.
Well, they have multiple, they feed lunch every day over there except Thursdays, which is dinner.
Yeah, so what I would love to know is what they would, maybe they don't want to come up with this, but what would the fee structure be? What would it look like if we just didn't give you money? What are our residents going to be charged? And if it ends up being that each resident would have to pay $3 a week to go use it, then maybe we don't subsidize the use of it. I don't know. I mean, it's a good service offering. It's not my demographic. I don't go there and eat lunch. I'm not trying to speak for that community, but I just don't know.
I would really like to talk to the county as well, because I think they have some skin in that game for the senior.
Well, we can get a copy of the agreement between. It's actually with Weaver Human Services and North Ogden City. And I'd like to get Phil's take on that agreement, because it's between those two parties. They're the two, but it specifies what the foundation board will do. There's some things, and I'm like, how could they do that when they're not a party to the agreement?
Yeah.
I'm not an attorney. I'm just, anyway, we'll get that agreement out. We'll find that agreement. We'll get with North Ogden.
So does Weaver Human Services, do they
I told-
manage? If they're hiring.
Yes. They're the ones that
You're
hire the director, and
You're welcome.
Thanks,
They
Brady.
are already contributing a huge amount to it. I don't know.
yeah, they are. They do contribute.
And the food,
But
right?
let's get that agreement, copy of that
Okay,
agreement. to
we
everybody.
can absolutely get additional details.
Yes.
So what if we go like this, Mayor, I make a motion that we table this item and get a copy of the Weaver Human Services Agreement, a proposed fee schedule if we didn't contribute, and an itemized idea of what $12,000 would go towards.
Okay, reasonable.
I second that motion.
Too late. Have a motion by Arrington, second by Gibson, third by Erie. All in favor to table?
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me or not. This is
Aye.
crappy.
We heard you. We can hear you, sir.
Yeah.
It was just a lot faster than
There's
yours.
just a delay there.
I don't know what's going on. Anyway, okay.
All right,
awesome.
we'll move back to item 7, public hearing on the budget. If I entertain a motion to go, or yes, go back into public hearing.
So move.
Motion by Gibson, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're in public hearing. Now we'll turn it over to Amy, which,
Okay.
Can we address this now that we don't?
yeah, that's just second part.
Yeah, so what I'd recommend with the last action is removal of the 4, 5, 6, 7 whereas, and the other numbers in here reflecting that
of the highlighted.
third bullet point. And you have before you an updated version of this as well. So before you this evening is a resolution amending the budget and some items included in this. The first item to address, and again, recommend removal of the item we just discussed for further clarification and information, is a modification to our staffing. Our part-time staff member, who is our, building permits, or not building permit, yes. Building permits clerk and tech, and also our front end coverage. So we are very excited to have a new planner with us, but we have still been inundated with planning and
This
different
is
items.
why Sonia's here.
This is why Sonia.
Okay, I was like, oh, she's. Okay,
So
it just
Sonia-
dawned- it
Sonia
just
is
dawned
our-
on me.
Yeah, our front end staff, and frankly, we've had a lot of burden placed on Laurie, our recorder, and slash comptroller, and also Heather, our treasurer, and all of her other duties. And I'd like to see a shift with our coverage as much as possible in expanding Sonia's hours to 3/4 time to help with that, but then also have Sonia help with some of the administrative items with our planning. So that's the proposal before you this evening. And the hours, if approved, will be modified to have coverage most days until 2:30 with our two front-end individuals. When Mondays and Wednesdays, we'll have coverage the entirety of the day, and Fridays coverage the entirety of the day. And then we'll also have Debbie doing backup to assist with that as well. But just really to kind of, and we're all still willing to cover and happy to help, but there's a lot of disruption that happens with Laurie and Heather and Brandon, and really to kind of clean that up and have more of that front end.
Amy's been very proactive in, it's like, we need our planner to plan, we need our treasurer to be the treasurer, we need Laurie to do all her recorder duties. Not be constant, it's so hard for them, because, we get a lot of walk-ins with who knows what. I mean, could be a dog license, and you sit back down, the next somebody comes in, I want a building permit, and trying to explain that to him, you just sit down, the next person comes in, so
And even with our building.
this won't totally fix it. Like you said, they'll still be available, and they might have to occasionally, but we think it will go a long ways to helping to resolve this problem.
And we've identified available funds in the budget. And even with our building permits, I have to say, having Sonia part-time, and I think she's done a great job stepping up, but even that amount of time really, we get a lot of calls after she's gone on that, and it's a little bit difficult on that front.
I'll just add an additional comment. It's not an attempt to say that anyone's sort of above different responsibilities or anything like that, but more to make sure that their training and skill set are optimized to what they're offering to the city and delivering for the city.
See a decrease in the of the work that on that. I really,
Yeah.
I really thought by now we would see a significant.
It's kind of a
housing starts,
fascinating,
but we have a
yeah.
lot- I guess we have a lot more commercial, maybe that's.
Well, and that's, really the reality. I think there were a lot of PUDs and also subdivisions approved.
Yeah, we have a lot
Before.
of inventory out there that are.
So we've
Waiting
still
for
got a
that.
lot that's underway with development. And it's interesting. I spoke with one of our developers earlier on the commercial front, and he said that things are still hopping on his end. But I know Brandon came from North Ogden, and it seems like, not to paint them in a corner or picture, but things are slowing a little bit there, but we're still busier than ever. It's kind of a fascinating deal. And part of it is to optimize our service to our residents as well. I think it's really challenging when we don't have enough front coverage and people come in, and it's just really difficult.
Sonia graciously has said she would go to 3/4 time, so
And so right now this.
has the skill set to pull this off, so that's good.
Absolutely. And so this does include increase in wages, and then also some increase in benefits that are not currently available with 401k match and some retirement. And so the total is 15,700. Is that through July 1, Larry? And then obviously we'd like to reevaluate in 6 months time the position as we do, and see where things are at that point.
Okay, so we're striking the last whereas.
So it's
third
the,
bullet point, which
this-
has to
yeah.
do with senior program. And that leaves just what we've just talked about.
oh, there's another item. I'm sorry. So this is an addition today, an increase to the contractual services budget. And the reason for this increase, we thought that the Microsoft 365 license was an 3-year, I was like triannual, is that trying to make up words over here? A 3-year agreement, but it actually is an annual renewal. And so we do need to pay that so we can keep our computers going.
Our Microsoft Office or 365 for the city is a total of 5,200 annually.
Oh, is this all of the annual?
Just for the Microsoft, the 5,000.
262.
I just seen I mean, I don't know. I don't buy that.
Public, I'll make a motion to go to
I was just gonna ask.
Second.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Back
I'll
to the
make a
council.
motion that we approve this resolution 2023B with scratching the last whereas, going to the senior center. And put in a motion that we get a detailed schnitzel recipe with directions. Well, I want to be able to duplicate it. So
She
Please.
makes some way good food.
I'd like to have that, please. Sonia.
A mushroom recipe as well while we're talking
All right.
recipes.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2023-B, striking the last whereas of the increased senior program. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion by Gibson, second by Marriott. Any further discussion? Arrington. roll
Yes.
call vote, sorry. Gibson, Marriott, Nelson, Gary,
Yes.
Gary. Motion carries. Thank you. All right.
Really quickly, a major thank you to the council for the support of our staff. I can't thank you enough. You know, we've got some challenges, but this really will help us. And thank you, Sonia, and you're welcome to stay or leave. You what? That was a yes. Oh. So a week from Monday will be the first day on the new schedule. So I can't remember what day of February that is.
All right, item 9 is local transportation funding agreement. Discussion and possible action to accept a local transportation funding agreement with Weber County for 2725 North and 20. Well, that doesn't seem, is that what we're gonna call that? That's an awful far distance apart for only being a half a block. And 2775 North Corridor Project located in Pleasant View City and Far West City. Amy.
Okay, well, that's the technical name of it for right now, but we can
We can name it later.
wordsmith all along the way if desired. So before you this evening, and this is kind of an exciting item and trying to look for it in my, oh, I think I sent it out.
Yeah, as I say, it's not.
I sent it out after, and the reason why is because we had some clarifying language with Weber County on it. Oh, thank you, Larry. So it's a local transportation funding agreement. One of the things thought very important to clarify, and it's in, I don't know which whereas, but it says the city has identified and committed matching funds in the amount of $9,142,437 towards the project. And whoa, we don't have $9 million to commit to this project. However, with development anticipated along the roadway, that would provide the contributions necessary for the completion of the project. So there is a specification here with project completion contingent upon and in conjunction with developer participation and development along the roadway. And that's what's going to allow for the full completion of the project. We're really excited about this project and feel that it's going to be mutually beneficial to our city and to Far West, and also to Weber County, who just recently closed on the Horseshoe Pond. Yes. We're going to be having a
Yes.
celebratory lunch on Groundhog's Day.
Have they put any detailed plans on what they want to do and how they want to have that?
Not that we've seen, but we are gonna have a meeting with them. Talk to them on Groundhog Day. Very appropriate.
That is a
Like,
long.
boy, that's, yeah, That was the very first project when I became mayor. Toby handed me this and said, hey, this is under, you know, way, sort of. He was working with Far West, not really with the county, but it was kind of, we found through the legal documents and stuff, that it was really the county's.
Well, the county wanted us to take it over.
Yeah, and they wanted, and so, he said, no.
How did we ever do that?
Right.
All of it.
So we talked and said it needed to be a regional pond because we're just one player, and they agreed. And Scott Jenkins was very, you know, that's a good legacy for him.
It
He's
is.
no longer a commissioner, but that was really something he pushed toward the end of his tenure there and got it done. So it was really exciting. And then we just back the what's before us. You know, we saw a need for these roadways down there. Part of it was in Far West, part of it was in Pleasant View. We approached WACOG with a joint application. It was really interesting. Joint application, which they told us to split apart. We all met out there on the same project. They asked us to prioritize them. You know, Far West was their project, ours was ours, and we said okay because we knew what the commissioner's project would be the ours. You know, they ended up saying, well, they want to do them both, but they want them to be one project. Which like, okay.
There were only hours spent
Yeah.
separating and combining.
Yeah,
and
it was really
separating.
hard for me. Thanks to Amy for dividing and preparing it, dividing it and putting it back together. And so
was
it's
a
a
fun
lot of money.
experiment.
It's a big thing. It's really great that we're getting that.
Did the county get the restroom facilities? Is that part of their?
I think they got that whole piece of property.
They purchased the entire parcel.
They're thinking of making some kind of amenity there, so. At least Jenkins was, rather
Are
than
they gonna
carries
open
through.
that up to a useful?
So what the discussions were, and obviously it's still very, I guess, early on in the discussions, but some type of recreational pond area, something similar to like the Bountiful Pond, the Syracuse Pond came in to discuss, you know, just something nice that people can go and enjoy.
That was Commissioner Jenkins's goal, and like I said, rather the current commission carry that forward, we're hopeful, but we'll see where it goes, so.
But
North Ogden has plans to do a pond, right? That was in there. So I'm assuming they won't do that.
They're getting, well, they probably
They're
will.
moving their pond.
They're moving the one off 2,700 kind of back down adjacent to the Chambers property back. Yeah, and sell that.
That land is more valuable as a commercial piece than a mud puddle.
Very much. And then where it's going, right? So, okay. I don't know. I thought it was in progress. I thought it was in work in progress.
Well, the money been earmarked for
I
it.
think they're getting close to being ready to sell that other piece soon, as soon as that pond's done, probably spring or summer.
Multiple ponds.
Okay, anyway, so we have an agreement.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, any questions of Amy? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Nobody wants to accept that money?
I'll accept that.
Okay.
I think it's a great, such a long time coming.
Yes.
I think it's
absolutely
only
right.
gonna help our commercial area down there. I just,
And really from a
Like-
safety standpoint for our residents using the services in that area, you know, having that signalized access, it's critical.
that
I'll
is our-
second Steve's acceptance. Unless
so-
somebody already did. Apparently
Oh.
there's a.
we were waiting for you, Sarah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
for
motion to
sure.
accept the agreement
Yeah.
by
Yep.
Steve, second by Sarah. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I-
Opposed?
Far West, are they all on board as well? They're not putting up any stakes, are they?
They've asked us to manage the agreement, so we'll actually put forward an interlocal with Far West just to manage the project, but the county, WACOG's asked us to manage the project.
Is this something we'd want to include in our newsletter in the next month or two?
Yes, heck yeah.
It really means a lot for that area.
It's
I don't
awesome.
think
It
they
really is awesome.
Understand what that really truly means.
They were very complimentary of us working with Far West. you know, they said, well, we've never really received a joint application before. That's what threw them, you know, it's like, you guys are gonna work together on this. And so, they're very complimentary when we met with them out on site, that we were working together as two communities right there. So I think that helped with our cause, get that money, so. Which was. All right, item 10 is a closed meeting, consideration for a closed meeting pursuant to one or more of the provisions of the California Public Meetings Law. We do have a couple of closed meetings we need. First one is, which you want to take first,
We've got like 3 items.
but they're all a little different,
So we've got security,
personnel or.
character and competence, and then, property.
Acquisition. Okay.
So last
let's-
time we did a closed meeting, those who were on Zoom like got kicked out, so.
well, we're gonna have-
I won't
we'll
kick you
keep
out
Zoom,
again.
but
I
we'll
was,
have to shut down YouTube.
yeah, we'll need to turn off.
So I'd
the
entertain a
recording.
motion to go into a closed meeting to talk about security devices.
So moved.
Second. So we need that. Is that a roll call vote? So motion by Arrington, second by Marriott. Roll call vote. Nelson, Arrington,
Yes.
yes, Gibson, and Yuri.
Yes.
One moment.
And now we gotta switch off and we're gonna excuse